Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Karen Davis, who is the founder and president of United Poultry Concerns, and she's going to introduce our first speaker. So this is Karen Davis.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. It's great to see you. I think we're going to have a wonderful lineup today of speakers and information and ideas to share with you and all of you with us as presenters and all of us together. It's going to be a great learning experience. It's going to be a great opportunity for us to hone our skills as advocates for farmed animals and conscious eating. So it is, let me just explain quickly that I am Karen Davis. I'm the founder and president of United Poultry Concerns. Our headquarters are based in Machaponga, Virginia, and include a sanctuary for rescued chickens. And so I have the great pleasure and honor every single day of my life to be with chickens who have been rescued from horrific conditions, including 50 hens from California, who were actually flown to the East Coast and ultimately came to our sanctuary in Virginia. So we're just so happy to have those California hens, and I can tell you they are enjoying their lives with us. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to our first speaker, who is Mary Britton Clouse, who is the co-founder with Bert Clouse, who is also here with us today, of an organization called Chicken Run Rescue, based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Mary is going to speak to you about the work that she does and that Bert does to help chickens to rescue and rehabilitate them in Minneapolis out of their home. A few things about Mary. First of all, let me just tell you that Mary and I met over chickens because there was going to be an exhibit featuring Mabel and Scout, a rooster and a hen, who were going to be used in an absurd and ridiculous art exhibit at the Minneapolis Art Museum. And when we learned about it, we really got our forces together, and we got to know each other, and we actually got that exhibit stopped on animal cruelty grounds. Yes. So that episode catapulted Mary Britton Clouse into chickens from a lifetime of activism on behalf of many animals, but I do believe that that was the beginning of the chicken love and chicken activism for Mary. And I have my own story, but I will save that. Anyway, Mary has served as president of the Minnesota Animal Rights Coalition, founded the Minnesota Spay Neuter Project, and has been involved in legislative efforts in Minnesota for animal protection. In 2001, Mary Britton Clouse and Bert Clouse co-founded Chicken Run Rescue and also Justice for Animals Arts Guild, which addresses the use of animals, advocating for the non-use of live animals in art exhibits. So Mary has a lifetime of activism for animals, all animals, and now she's going to speak to you about the work that she does for chickens and what we all need to know to help these birds and be better advocates on their behalf. So without further ado, I introduce Mary Britton Clouse to you. Thank you. I'll get out of your way.
Thank you, Karen. Get this. I tend to be a little soft-spoken, so tell me when I've got it in the right place. Is it, everybody hear me okay? All right. How wonderful it is to be here in every way. Bert just finished clearing a foot of new snow on 5 feet already in the yard just before we left Minneapolis. So we're really happy to be here. With any luck, it'll be melted by the time we get home. Greetings and gratitude to Karen for inviting us to speak and making sure that this important event happens every year. To carry the work forward, to inspire, strengthen our numbers, and as Karen says, lead the way to a worldwide crusade for animals and animal liberation. Don't know what we would do or the animals without Karen. Special thanks to Hope Bohanik and her skilled organizing for this conference, and thanks also to Animal Place for their sponsorship of the conference and all the important work that they do. And hello to those of you who may be here that we've worked with long distance. Neighbors, is there anybody here from Neighbors Opposed to Backyard Slaughter? Oh, no!
In Oakland.
In Oakland, yeah. Because we've been covering a lot of similar issues in both cities. And also Free From Harm, we've worked with them long distance. And how about Berkeley Organization for Animal Advocacy? Anybody here from that group? Nope? Okay, well, then there we go. This conference explores the fad of backyard animal keeping versus factory farming, the humane meat, eggs, and milk myth, looking at how animals can get lost when we talk about veganism. If we let that happen, we lose our way. My original working title for this talk was The Whole Point, meaning this animal here before me, not in the abstract, but in the flesh and blood, with a beating heart, eye to eye, with a squirm, a buck-buck, a burble, and the warmth of prehistoric toes grasped around a finger. What happens to them matters to them. What has always guided us in our struggle to change the world for animals, challenge injustice, and protect the victims is to stay focused on the individual animal and who suffers injustice in greater numbers and atrocities but this chicken, the underdog of all underdogs. As Karen once so eloquently put it, our curse on them isn't extinction, but proliferation. Help them, and by extension, we aim to help all animals. But how to do that as a city dweller? Well, the backyard farming fad has laid that challenge and opportunity at our door. The unthinkable number of animals killed for food can paralyze the uneducated public and the seasoned activist. But suffering is always experienced at the individual level. As long as animals are used and killed for food, every other evil perpetrated on them is predicated on that twisted entitlement. Our mission is to insist that the right questions be asked that challenge that entitlement at every turn. By sharing our stories and these pictures about living with rescued chickens in the heart of Minneapolis, spanning 14 years and over 900 birds, we hope to motivate others who believe as we do in the struggle by showing what they can do in their own communities to advocate for chickens. Many urban activists shy away from farm animal issues due to the lack of confidence that comes from firsthand knowledge. Truly knowing an animal comes from loving them for who they are, not for what can be taken from them. This knowledge can give us courage in our convictions and make us more effective in educating those around us. In my preparations for this talk, I visited the Berkeley Organization for Animal Advocacy Facebook page, and I was thrilled to learn of their trip to Animal Place to help with hens that had just been moved to the main sanctuary. I also just became aware of the newly formed Animal Compassion Tour. California animal activists got together and set out to tour animal agriculture facilities from Sacramento to Los Angeles. Wonderful things are happening here in California, and we are so lucky to be here with you today. That is so interesting. These two, that was Eden and Prairie, and the same week that they arrived, and I took that picture, someone sent me that postcard. Totally coincidental. I'll give some background about how Chicken Run Rescue got started, and while I talk, you'll be seeing pictures that will hopefully delight and surprise and show the birds in unexpected contexts. In 1980, we moved into the most disadvantaged and violent area in Minneapolis, and we still live there. The abject cruelty to dogs, cats, and humans, and the lack of law enforcement that we witnessed was what got us politically motivated and led to our exposure to animal rights philosophy, food animal hell, and ultimately to vegetarianism and then to veganism. Chickens were still invisible to us until two events coincided that brought them to our doorstep. The first was in 2000, Karen just mentioned this, an exhibit titled Acres of Art at the Minneapolis Institute of Arts. It included two live chickens, Mabel and Scout, caged and tacked on a wall as if they were inanimate objects. There had been an escalating incidence of horrific acts against animals, especially food animals, and as artists, we couldn't remain silent. UPC got involved, Mabel and Scott got out of that exhibit, and that's when we met Karen. Shortly after the live chicken exhibit, a 2001 cockfighting bust left 7 roosters slated for death at Minneapolis Animal Control Facility. We stepped in to help them, and this marked the beginning of Chicken Run Rescue. Bert and I started by finding homes for those roosters. The next time a chicken was picked up as a stray, Animal Control called us, and our door has been open to every stray or abandoned chicken in the city since then. We discovered how to advocate for food animals right there in the city. To date, we have rescued nearly 900 chickens. I've been working on this for a little while. As well as other domestic fowl, pigs, goats, and sheep impounded by the city shelters. We've provided them with love, shelter, vet care, carefully screened adoptive homes. We work primarily with Minneapolis Animal Care and Control and a 5-county metro area humane society. Impounded chickens are victims of neglect, abuse, abandonment, used for eggs, slaughter, fighting, ritual sacrifice, nature lessons, or are discarded after the novelty of backyard farming has worn off. As many as 40 birds at a time have lived with us in our inner city home. We've learned that truly knowing a chicken comes with the daily intimacy of living with them, caring for them in sickness and in health, loving them as individuals. Now, 100% of our adopters adopt them as companion animals. And to ensure there's no mistake about this, all of our hens have received contraceptive implants, so there's no eggs to be got. We discovered early on that quality vet care for chickens as individuals was non-existent and have invested heavily in the best companion avian care possible. There are now over 20 clinics in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area that see chickens as companions. We avoid poultry science vets like the plague. Their objective is to maximize the productivity of the birds as a food source. Their approach to a sick bird is to cull, not to cure. Our urban space is limited and takes a lot of organization and effort to keep the birds clean, healthy, safe, happy. We and our shelter management coordinator, Katie Young, comprise 3 part-time staff positions that hustle full-time. And we have lots of volunteers who help us keep sane. A rural setting would be much easier and better, but accessibility to a dense population means far more visibility, and more people can learn firsthand about the birds who are otherwise hidden from view. We chose a shelter and adoption approach over a true sanctuary structure because we felt we could reach the most people in the city, and sanctuaries, sadly, always fill up. A very wise supporter told us recently, better for 5,000 people to meet 5 animals than 5 people to meet 5,000 animals. By adopting birds to loving homes and teaching others how to help them in the context of their daily lives, more animals could be helped and compassion built in a broader community. However, as the fad has developed, we struggle with too few homes that are up to our standards. So now, like other sanctuaries, we have had to limit the number of birds we can help. Ours is the only urban chicken rescue of its kind that we are aware of. This has put us on the front lines of the backyard chicken fad, fueled by the locavore movement. with singular expertise. The upside is that it has given us the opportunity to educate about who chickens are and how to care for them, to spread respect for them, and at every opportunity promote a plant-based diet in the copious media coverage about the fad. 2013 coverage included 122 references to CRR in local, national, and international publications. This exposure has also positioned us to have some influence in local public policy about backyard chickens. Our published materials include a video presentation that's used by city planners and a document about basic chicken care that is now required reading for chicken permit applicants in many cities. If we can't stem the fad, at least we get to see that the best interests of the birds are front and center. The downside of the fad is chickens are subjected to the same neglect, abuse, and abandonment that plagues dogs, cats, and other animals with whom we share our homes. Locavores cite sustainability, knowing where their food comes from, and rejecting the intense confinement of factory farms. However, in our experience, the birds' interests are quickly compromised or forgotten in pursuit of cheap and easy. It's human nature, and this is what happens to them in the cities. From the chicken's perspective, there is nothing sustainable about freezing to death in a tiny backyard box or being discarded when the hen develops ovarian cancer and stops laying, or the cute chick begins to crow. The fad has created a nationwide epidemic of unwanted chickens, ducks, geese, quail, and other domesticated fowl. They are being abandoned and seized or surrendered to animal shelters, animal sanctuaries and shelters when the novelty wears off. Before 2009, we averaged fewer than 40 surrender inquiries a year. Since 2009, we have been asked to help over 1,412 animals, overwhelmingly birds, and in no way have we been able to help them all. Cities allowing chickens are now too numerous to mention and still growing. But there may be light at the end of the tunnel. There is evidence that the fad is waning in publicity about the sad consequences for the animals. Problems coming home to roost is now a popular headline. Our mission has evolved to this: to foster a shift in critical thought about who is food and who is friend through rescue, rehabilitation, adoption, and education. We use every opportunity to move chickens away from the status as a food-producing animal and toward the status of a companion animal, from the plate to the heart. Our adoption motto is, "Our rescues need homes, not jobs." Our tagline is, "Help all animals by adopting a plant-based diet. Help individual chickens by adopting them as companions." Connecting real individual animals with people brings a personal insight of the consequences of their food choices. Our city home and shelter has become a meeting place for birds and people. There is a place in the heart and the mind that changes when we touch an animal. We want city folks, especially kids, to have that experience, but to do so as visitors to the birds in their own safe and familiar environment. One can't truly understand and appreciate the beauty, the joy, the intelligence, dignity, agility, and zany exuberance of chickens without understanding the natural world that they inhabit, and also to see how they do adapt to a comfortable home environment. Our Facebook album, City Folks Meet City Chickens, demonstrates the wide variety of visitors we have. A summer kids program sponsored by a local humane society. Annual visits from inner-city preschools, vegan family clubs, university groups, including veterinary students, animal rights and vegan advocacy groups, animal control interns, and city officials from Minneapolis and surrounding cities. One ongoing relationship that we are particularly excited about is that a visit to Chicken Run Rescue is now, who are we? Oh, that's Mac. we're particularly excited about is that a visit to CRR is now a curriculum requirement for College of St. Catherine's philosophy classes about food ethics and women's studies. In another Facebook album, we celebrate the important work done by our volunteers, a pool of over 85 city people from all walks of life. We couldn't function without them. As a matter of fact, 3 of them are looking after the birds right now, which enabled us to be here today. Each new volunteer receives a copy of Karen Davis's vital work, Prison Chicken, Poison Eggs, Tom Reagan's Empty Cages, and our favorite vegan beginner's cookbook. They leave us inspired by feathered friends, facts, philosophy, and food choices, and they often return with family and friends. Now for a bit about the title of my talk. A chicken or this chicken? Rupturing sense of the absent referent. This is what I mean by a chicken or this chicken. As I've mentioned, the philosophic principle that guides us is this: suffering is always experienced at the individual level. Sometimes the real individual animals for whom we speak and the philosophical foundations of advocacy get lost in discussions about food choices. The results are some very confused questions about where to buy vegan eggs. And the misguided notion that backyard animal agriculture is an alternative to, instead of an extension of, factory farms. The philosophy of animal rights Tom Reagan describes this way: at its deepest level, human ethics is based on the independent value of the animal, of the individual. The other animals humans eat, use in science, hunt, trap, and exploit in a variety of ways have a life of their own that is of importance to them, apart from their utility to us. They are not only in the world, they are aware of it. What happens to them matters to them. Each has a life that fares better or worse for the one whose life it is. We are able to introduce people to birds with names, personalities, friends and foes, and detailed stories of how they came to us. Our birds have a close physical relationship with humans, so visitors discover they are warm and silky and lovely to hold, every bit as curious and sociable as other companion animals. The birds are perceived so differently in the lab. One philosophy student reflected on her visit this way: we see animals as something to be used, commodities that provide us with food, fabric, and other materials. At Chicken Run, the chickens are not seen in this way, and I think that attitude makes all the difference. While I was holding a chicken, she spooked, and my first natural reaction was to protect and comfort her. In the midst of this, I realized that protecting those that are smaller and weaker than us is generally accepted as the right thing to do. Exploiting the weaknesses in others is wrong in so many ways. Even so, it is a socially acceptable thing to do when the being you are exploiting happens to be a farm animal. I was struck by the fact that I had never even thought about protecting a chicken until a nervous one was in my arms. We are compassionate creatures, and I believe that we should begin to act like it. That's Larry. He was a big help in the clinic. On the BOA Facebook page, I also found a similar reaction by one of the volunteers that went to Animal Place. Our personal experiences with individual animals often reshape our understanding of and commitment to animal rights. On our recent visit to Animal Place, for example, many of us bonded with individual hens who were placed in our care. Recognizing each hen's unique personality was an incredibly rewarding experience, and the stories we tell about such experiences gives us greater credibility and power as activists for all the others who aren't so lucky. She continues, while we learned a lot, perhaps the most important aspect of the experience was the opportunity to bond with individual hens. When you see them in pictures, or even in person, when the hens are all bunched up into a mass, it's really hard to identify them. They are just a crowd, a flock, a mass, not individuals that we can easily empathize with. But when a sanctuary worker puts an individual hen into your care, suddenly the relationship transforms. They are now not just animals, not just chickens, they are our wards and responsibilities. And we begin to notice how each is different from all the others. That's what a chicken has become, this chicken. By helping these individual animals relative to the unimaginably vast populations in agricultural hell, people are more easily able to connect on an intimate level, and that is where enlightenment begins. Advocating for an animal-free diet is brought to life with a physical connection to the animals and a fundamental philosophical footing. The opportunity for philosophical and social evolution lies in enabling people to learn firsthand that chickens are intelligent, gentle, vivacious individuals who form lifelong emotional bonds with each other and other species. Rupturing sense is the second idea in my talk. I first encountered the concept of rupturing sense in relation to how art can open minds to seeing things in a different light. When it comes to animals, it can be both about revealing the being inside the body. It can also mean rupturing preconceptions about what is sense. Bert says animal rights activists bang their heads about rupturing sense every day, and we all know what sense we want to rupture. Rupturing sense, or unframing, is a concept coined by Felix Guattari in his work Chaosmosis. He used it to describe how art can cause us to think in new ways about things we thought we do when we see them in an unexpected context. In his essay, Our Inner Animal, artist, art historian, and author Steve Baker applies it to art about animals as rupturing sense of human-animal distinctions and hierarchies. These photographs I'm showing you are about living with individuals who are chickens in a home in the heart of the city, living cheek by wattle and interacting with them on a daily basis and recording our wonder of them and their wonder at our world, not as subjects, but as consorts. We unframe conventions that they do not belong in our house and in our lives, conventions based on a hierarchy of domination. I will say this is not the life we would wish for them. A tropical jungle would be their choice, but we work with the tools at hand. That's Rajesh, he's our coffee break boy. He does that every day. If you tickle his tummy, he looks at you through his legs. But we work with the tools at hand. The chickens are with us because they need us. Neither we nor they are responsible for whatever predicament has brought them to us in an alien terrain and climate, but we invent ways to make life as fulfilling, fun, and interesting, that's better, as possible for each other. Their reward is life. Our reward is what they teach us, if only we are willing to be open to the experience. The absent referent is a concept that I first encountered reading Sexual Politics of Meat by Carol Adams. When a being, a woman or animal in this case, is objectified and defined by what they're good for, they disappear. In her essay, Who Came Before the Absent Referent, Adams writes, "The absent referent is the animal who disappears to make meat eating and dairy and egg consumption possible. The cow is the absent referent in hamburger, the pig in bacon, pork, ham, the chicken in buffalo wings, individual fishes in fish." Let's see. Female animals, to an even greater degree, are absent referents, kept into sexual slavery for eggs, dairy, and offspring. Then they are killed for the hamburger or the chicken soup. Adams holds that we do not have to come to this consciousness of the fate of the absent referent through an encounter with an actual animal. But in our experience at CRR, we can't imagine it happening otherwise. We witness it with every visitor to our rescues. Again, there is a place in the heart and the mind that changes when they touch an animal. That moment of epiphany, what Adams calls traumatic knowledge. For a brief time, they look into other eyes, feel warm breath and a beating heart, and see not a chicken, but this chicken. So what does this have to do with us here today? At a recent tabling encounter at VegFest, one of our volunteers, who lives with rescued hens of her own, observed, "In some ways, I felt animals were strangely absent from this weekend's events, even though it was a whole weekend that was supposed to be about protecting them." We, above all others, can't let the animals vanish into absent reference when we talk about veganism. Who among us has not winced with disappointment when mainstream articles like the February Consumer Report, "Is Your Chicken Safe to Eat?" fails to even allude to the ethical issues of what happens to the animals? Marketing veganism only as a health or environmental food choice is a tenuous gain that can too easily slip away with the next food fad or technological humane hat trick like the rotten egg bill. We've been asked for vegan eggs and seen activists who once campaigned for a vegan lifestyle now advocate for hunting and backyard slaughter, or chicken rescuers selling eggs. It's got to be about this animal. They are the whole point, or there is no point at all. If the change isn't ultimately for a non-negotiable reason like ethics, it's less likely to stick. To soft pedal ethical duties to animals is to forsake them. We have a few to go through before we get to the next. The timing, my apologies. This is really hard for us. We're not techno heads, so getting things to line up where we want them doesn't always happen. We're almost there. Okay. All right, now on to Berkeley and Calgary. In this context, I want to restore two absent referents, Berkeley and Calgary, whose public executions were symptomatic of the sense we need to rupture, both in art and in life. On February 12, 2003, a student in Professor Kevin Radley's New Genres art class, right here on the campus, UC Berkeley, student decapitated with a meat cleaver, decapitated a chicken now named Berkeley. And this was described as an autobiographical class presentation about the nature of the link between food sources and processed foods in contemporary culture. In response to UPC's call for an investigation, the UC Berkeley Animal Care and Use Committee issued this in their report. There are no significant animal welfare concerns associated with the manner in which the animal was handled and euthanized. According to the committee, the AVMA says that decapitation without prior sedation or anesthesia is an acceptable euthanasia method for birds that are intended for human food.
Excuse me, Mary, does everybody know what the AVMA stands for?
The Association of Veterinary Medical Association. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
American.
Veterinary Medical Association.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Don't mean to presume, but I did. Okay, so 10 years later, on April 18th, 2013, a fully conscious hen, now named Calgary, had her throat slit and her body drained of blood, plucked and dismembered in an art performance in the school cafeteria. The act was performed by Alberta College of Art and Design student Miguel Suarez and approved by his teacher, Gord Ferguson. Justice for Animals Arts Guild, Canadians for the Ethical Treatment of Food Animals, and United Poultry Concerns launched a joint campaign which has thus far included a MoveOn.org petition, media coverage and commentary, freedom of information requests for the video to the police and the college, and an offer to assist the school in drafting a code of ethical conduct. All requests and appeals to the release of the video have been denied thus far. The most recent denial from the school just arrived on April 4th. The release of the records which you have requested could once again lead to threats of death and bodily harm to the involved individuals, create additional safety risk to them, and jeopardize their physical and mental health. No reference whatsoever to the act of violence or the victim. The performance was committed in public and broadcast in the media, but the release of the video might jeopardize the physical and mental health of the assailant. They're portraying the victimizer as the victim. Calgary could not be more absent. Art is about ideas. Animals are not ideas. They are as real as we are. Their suffering and deprivation is psychologically and biologically indisputable in the present and means the world to that individual animal. No act of self-expression is worth the life or liberty of another. What was done to Calgary and Berkeley was done because society has turned a blind eye and sanctioned that millions of chickens are killed daily, weekly, yearly, but conveniently out of sight. Calgary's and Berkeley's executions took place in public with an audience, and because it was intended as a symbolic act, we've made their names, lives, identity, and death symbols as well. The next part of what I'm going to talk about, I call the Diary of a Spent Hen. As I was writing this, this hen, Zazu, stands parked in front of the keyboard. She's inconsolable. Her plaintive "ree, ree, ree" tells me she has to lay an egg, and she is anxious and uncomfortable about it. She wants my attention, and she stretches her face towards mine and looks me square in the eye to get it. She demands to be held and consoled. The contraceptive implant she got last summer is wearing off, and her ovaries are being overwhelmed by the breeding season, exacerbated by deliberate manufacture through breeding to produce eggs. In other words, reproductive slavery. She's enjoyed 8 months of being able to just be a calm, happy bird, scratching the dirt, eating treats, hanging out peacefully with her peeps, chasing the occasional butterfly or cursor on her computer. Rest easy, Zazu has an appointment for next Friday to get her new implant. We know her intimately, so we have no delusions that she wants to, or enjoys, or is indifferent to laying. She has to lay. It's like giving birth every day of your life. Sadly, we also know exactly what could happen to her if we don't intervene. Every person here who has rescued hens knows this dark cloud. After caring for and losing many hens over many years, we have learned this: constant laying kills them. This is a picture. In the foreground is Piazza, and in the background, the black hen is Olive, and the white hen is Andrea. And all three of those hens died of ovarian cancer within weeks of this picture. Domesticated chickens are the most genetically modified species on the planet. Pigs are second, dairy cows are third. Sorry, locavores, GMO is GMO. And don't forget, as biology would have it, the sex of the birds is always a 50-50 proposition. For every laying hen, there is a dead or abandoned rooster, hardly sustainable if you are an unlucky invisible boy. Something one of our vets said brought all this into focus for me. He was treating a hen named Tara for probable ovarian cancer and referred to chronic egg laying as a probable cause in his exam notes. It occurred to me that that would be described as a good layer by someone whose only interest was the eggs. I searched chronic egg laying and found this. It is defined as the laying of eggs in excess of what would be normal for a particular species, or the production of a number of eggs that is detrimental to the health of a hen. Language always reveals bias and preconceived ideas that must be constantly re-scrutinized. Good layer and chronic egg laying means the same thing. For a companion animal, it's a pathology to be treated. For a food-producing animal, it's a trait to be bred for. The scales fell from my eyes. Here was a question I never hear anyone ask. Why do hens become non-productive at the ripe old age of 2 years when they can live to 34 in the wild? Daily egg laying is biologically unnatural and unsustainable. By the age of 2 years, domesticated hens begin to develop reproductive problems and cancers from incessant egg laying, and it ultimately kills them. All domestic hens have been manufactured for this trait by genetic modification and selective breeding. Because of the constant wear on her system, hens develop enlarged hearts and tumorous livers and other vital organs. The oviduct, a tube through which eggs pass from the ovary, disintegrates from the incessant trauma, and the egg material ruptures into the body cavity, rots, and slowly poisons her. This is also known as egg yolk peritonitis. The pressure from enlarged organs and abdominal fluid buildup prevents her digestive tract from functioning, and she is literally starving to death. It is a horrible death. The alternative fate that befalls billions of hens at that point is to be slaughtered for soup or pot pies or pet food. In that moment of clarity, after all these years of helplessly watching hens go down and not asking that question, I realized I had been as oblivious as anyone to a very obvious crack in the crumbling wall that divides friends versus food and shatters the perception that eggs are a harmless gift from the birds. We document as much as we can about every bird from their past life, their arrival, their personalities, preferences, relationships, and their health. Because we live so intimately with them, we've been able to monitor and learn from what the eggs look like as the pathology first develops. To their body language when they're in trouble. And poop is, chicken caregivers are absolutely obsessed with poop. You're desperate for every clue that you can get to monitor what's going. They can't speak, so we have to go by whatever's happening bodily. So I've literally thousands of pictures of poop, and whenever somebody is sick, that's the first thing that I do. And this is all poop from hens who had developed reproductive problems. So we know the minute we see that we've got an issue. Drives my vet crazy because I'm always sending her pictures of poop. The intervention. So we keep very careful records of the diagnostics and the medical interventions as we try to save them. And these are just a few. This is, let's see, are you able to back it up, Bert, to the first one? Okay, this is an X-ray. If you look at the area around the abdomen, you can see that there's kind of a transparent, almost like a water balloon around the body, and that's all of that fluid we were just talking about. And then the next side bird, and this is after it's been drained, so you can see what kind of quantities, how uncomfortable. This is the fluid that had been drained from one of our hens in just one treatment. It relieves the pressure temporarily. It's not a cure. It's just for the comfort of the bird. And sadly, when we do lose them, we have necropsies done. These will be brief, so, sorry. But this is what the cancer looks like on the insides of the birds. When everybody, she's slowing down, she's not laying, this is what's going on inside that bird. So, and then we write their memorials. The goal is to honor their memory, bear witness to what happened to them, and help other birds in the future. I want to introduce you to just one of our girls who arrived as a happy, healthy youngster. Her name was Tara. Tara was found as a stray in North Minneapolis and surrendered to a shelter. So her story really starts here at Chicken Run in April of 2010. She was named after a reporter who has written extensively about our work with chickens. We like to honor people who've helped us that way. Most of our birds have names after somebody. Tara was about 5 months old when she arrived. She was very timid at first around the older hens, and she also seemed to be wanting to be where she wasn't. She adored exploring in dense vegetation and flew over fencing easily. She had a strong will and a mind of her own. She was very people-oriented. Most hens are at that age. She was very interested in shiny things and feet. She was easy to pick up and sought human company and would jump on laps and heads. She loved treats of any kind. Most hens will herd. She dodged. Very independent. She laid her first egg on May 20th of 2010. She spent time with her rooster, Nicky T, for several weeks and looked to him for protection, company, and tasty treats he found for her. He'd pick up food, bring it to her, drop it at her feet, and offer a buck, buck, buck of encouragement for her to accept the gifts. She had a corneal abrasion to her left eye when she arrived, so needed ongoing medical attention. We fell in love with her, and she loved it with us, so we became home. Her unusually quiet behavior and abnormal egg and stool caught our attention in December of 2012. Blood work at the vet clinic revealed a high white count, which is a sign of infection, and high calcium and phosphorus, indicating active ovulation. Her x-rays were inconclusive. She got bed rest and antibiotics and seemed to be back to normal by April, but by late May, her behavior, appetite, and stools once again told us all was not well. This time, her white count had doubled. She temporarily improved with some supplements, steroids, and a change of antibiotics, sub-Q fluids, and draining fluid from her abdomen, but after a few days began to deteriorate again. An injection was given to slow her ovulation. Towards the end of June, I noted she's in a lot of pain, eyes closed, hunched, standing, tail down. I called the vet and got an okay to give Medicam, and she's on a heating pad in the carrier. I feel so bad for her, but hope this will resolve.
I'm so sorry. We're going to have to wrap it up.
Okay. All right. Okay, let me just cut to the chase. Tara was ultimately euthanized, cremated, and her ashes mixed with every other rescue that we've lost. She was the 10th hen with precisely the same pathology. Her necropsy, in a nutshell, cause of death, cholemic carcinomatosis and metastatic adenocarcinoma, possibly primary oviduct. Whether it's in a battery cage, enriched cage, or a backyard, constant laying kills hens. Nothing benign or natural about it. There is no such thing as a vegan egg. There is a bird who suffers for it, a bird who had a history and an interest in living. How do we keep it from getting lost, the animal from getting lost when we talk about being vegan? One, remember, is one way is to remember that they are the whole unalienable point. And I'll just conclude there. And if anybody wants to talk to me more about what they can do in their own community, see me after the presentations.